During the Christmas season of 1989, shortly after the Sega Genesis debuted in North America, Sega unleashed the Revenge of Shinobi, both in America and Japan. A true classic for the system, today I'm going to look at the various revisions the game would go through, how to increase your odds at finding the highly desired original version of the game, and show you what happened when I examined 11 copies of the game that I purchased while searching for the original. The Revenge of Shinobi was a true showcase for the Sega Genesis. Not only did it improve on the arcade hit original in many ways, including having more levels, more magic, and a great Yuzo Koshiro soundtrack, but it also contained a potpourri of pop culture icons. If you were to look at some of the original coverage of the game, like the premiere issue of Game Player's Sega Genesis Strategy Guide from the fall of 1990, you'd see that in the game, you'd have to face off with the likes of Spider-Man, Batman, and even Godzilla, although they were usually called something else in the manual. But there was even more pop culture references in the original version 1.00 of the game, which is also known as Revision 0. At the title screen, which features a 1989 copyright notice for the music by Yuzo Koshiro and a trademark symbol by the Revenge of Shinobi name, you could see Sonny Chiba's eyes, and a pose taken from a promo shot for his Japanese TV series Shadow Warriors. Round 3 introduces us to several clones of Rambo, who will reappear in later levels. The boss of Round 4 is heavily inspired by Arnold's T-800 Terminator, including shedding his skin to reveal his robotic endoskeleton underneath. The boss of Round 6 is Spider-Man, who throws webs that go behind you when they connect. After taking enough damage, Spider-Man will morph into a Batman-type character who is accompanied by several black bats. And the boss of Round 7 is none other than the big guy, Godzilla himself, although the manual humorously calls him a flame-spewing brontosaurus. During the early days of the internet, some believe this original version of the game was never officially released in the US, making those of us who remembered fighting Rambo and Batman wonder if we were suffering a Mandela effect of sorts from the damage that occurred during our youth from consuming too many cans of Jolt Cola and repeated hits from slap bracelets. But it turns out this revision was released both in the US and Japan using a ROM chip that, if it was placed in the Japanese Mega Drive, would change the title to The Super Shinobi on the screen, and add credits to the end of the game should you beat it, as cartridges put in a US Sega Genesis system would omit the credits and just say the end. However, the game would go through several revisions. The first revision, Revision 01, aka version 1.01, made the most changes. If you lived in Europe and bought the game when it was launched over there in late 1990, this is the version you got, as the European market never got the original version. In this first revision, Rambo has now gone bald. Spider-Man had been slightly altered, with the changes to his eyes and outfit making him look a little bit more like the real Spider-Man, probably since Sega did have a license for him at the time. His web now covers your body when you're hit, where before it went behind you. He no longer morphs into a Batman-type character, but now crawls off the top of the screen, with a new Batman-like villain taking his place. Except this Batman looks more like a mutant that some believe is based on the Japanese manga character named Devilman. Since Devilman didn't have much of a presence here in the US, I guess that makes it okay. His bats have also been recolored with brown in their wings that actually makes them look better in my opinion. Most of the changes of the second revision, Revision 02, aka version 1.02, centers around the title screen, where the Yuzo Koshiro copyright information has been removed. Now it occurs before the title screen, along with a 1990 copyright for Sega and for Spider-Man. The only change in the game I could find is that now when you are hit with Spider-Man's web, it really slows you down, making it harder to get out of and slightly increasing the overall difficulty of the game. The third revision, Revision 03 aka version 1.03, is a version that appeared in compilations including the Sega 6-pack cartridge for the Genesis and the Sega Classics Arcade Collection for the Sega CD, and on the Dreamcast compilation Sega Smash Pack Volume 1, albeit with poorly emulated sound for that one. By the way, this is not to be confused with the Sega PC Smash Pack, which reportedly contained an early Japanese prototype of Revenge of Shinobi under the Super Shinobi name, which is unfinished with several bugs and missing elements. I believe the third revision was also used when the game was re-released on cartridge as part of the blue-boxed budget Sega Classic line. This revision makes one big change. It removes Godzilla's skin, showing his skeleton and organs, making him one of the most gruesome characters to appear in a Sega Genesis game. It also changes his fire from red to blue. For whatever reason, they also removed the trademark symbol from the game title on the title screen. Finally, we had the fourth revision, Revision 04 aka version 1.04. This version came out after the life of the Genesis, and its appearances included digitally on the Wii Virtual Console and on the Sega Genesis Mini 2. This version replaces Sonny Chiba's likeness on the title screen, removes all references to Spider-Man, and recolors Spider-Man with a pink outfit suitable for breast cancer awareness. To my knowledge, this version was never officially released on a cartridge. But what if you want to get a cartridge containing the original version 1.00 of Revenge of Shinobi for the Sega Genesis? Well, I'm going to share how you can, or at least how you can increase your odds of getting one, even if you don't actually play the cartridge itself. Naturally, if you could play through the cartridge, there are ways you could tell. If you see Yoziro Koshiro's copyright information on the bottom of the title screen, it's either the original version or the first revision. If you see a Rambo with hair in round 3, which takes me about 10 minutes of playing to get to, you'd know that you had an original. If he's bald on a cartridge with the Yuzo copyright info on the bottom of the title screen, you have a Revision 1. If the Spider-Man copyright info appears before the title screen, and the Revenge of Shinobi name on the title screen has a trademark, you have a Revision 2. If the Spider-Man copyright information appears before the title screen, but the Revenge of Shinobi name on the title screen has no trademark, you have a Revision 3. Both the original style boxes and all the cartridge stickers look identical to the naked eye, but looking at the back of the cartridge shell can help a little bit. During the revisions, Sega changed the molding for the back of the cartridges, adding patent information to the left side. If you see this patent information, my experience says it's a Revision 3 and probably came in the blue Sega Classic box. If the patent information is missing, you have either the original or one of the first two revisions. The best way to tell what revision a cartridge is by seeing the MPR number located on the chip itself inside. Occasionally, eBay sellers will post pictures showing the inside of the cartridge, but that is somewhat rare. In order to open the cartridge, you will need a 4.5mm security bit or screwdriver to remove the specialty screws holding the cartridge together. The original version has only one known MPR number, MPR 12675. The first revision, version 1.01, has two known numbers I could find, MPR 12930F and MPR 12930-H. The F tells us Fujitsu made the chip, and H is for Hitachi. The second revision, version 1.02, uses the same base number, but adds an A at the end, MPR 12930A. I believe this A is simply telling us this is a new revision, and has nothing to do with the actual manufacturer. The third revision, 1.03, has one number I can confirm, MPR 12930B, so this repeats the same number. And I also believe MPR 18320-U may also be a third revision, and perhaps the final Sega Classic cartridge that came out in the mid-90s, although I can't confirm this myself. By the way, from what I could tell, they reused the manual for all the early versions, as they all gave a 1989 copyright year for Spider-Man. Later ones gave us a 1990 copyright year for Spider-Man. I don't believe a physical manual without a copyright reference to Spider-Man exists, so a 1989 copyright in the manual would have come with the original version, as well as the first two revisions in the standard-looking box according to my estimation. After learning all of this, I decided to go for a hunt on eBay. My method was simple. I would only buy carts without the patent information on the back. In order to extend my funds, I would try to pay under $20 out the door, trying to stay on the low end of what they were selling for. Condition wasn't super important since I was after what was inside and could theoretically replace a bad shell with a nicer looking one if I wished. I also didn't avoid former rentals, as my thinking was it was possible that a rental place may have bought the original release as soon as it came out. Counting a couple box cartridges I already owned that I wasn't sure about, I continued buying cartridges off of eBay during an 8-month period a little while back and ended up with 11 copies, 2 of which looked like former rentals. I let a 12th cartridge, the 6-pack, which I already owned, and contains the 3rd revision of the game, to hang out to see how I did. My nicest box copy of the game had an MPR number of 12930A for a revision 2. It also turned out to be the only board that had a place for a battery on it, although there wasn't one, unused of course, but this is still a legitimate board. My beat-up box copy had an MPR number of 12930H for a revision 1. That left 9 loose cartridges. The first loose cartridge with a scratched up label turned out to have an MPR number of 129,675, the original. Now I will admit that I knew at least one cartridge was the original, as the eBay seller posted a picture of what was inside with that number showing. But would this be my only original out of the 11 I had? The second loose cartridge had an MPR of 12675 as well. That gave me a count of 2 originals, 1 first revision and 1 second. The third loose cartridge had an MPR of 12938 for my second revision. The fourth had an MPR of 12675, another original, bringing my total to 3 originals out of 6 carts opened. The fifth loose cartridge had some label damage, but ended up being another MPR 12675, another original. I was on a roll with 4 originals and 4 cartridges to still open. The 6th cartridge looked like a former rental due to the sticker damage on the front. Unfortunately, its MPR number was 12930-H. So not an original, but a first revision. The 7th cartridge also looked like a former rental, with a rental sticker on the front and a name scratched on the back. It ended up not being an original, but rather had an MPR of 12930F. Yet another first revision. So much for my rental theory, at least for those last 2 cartridges. The 8th cartridge was another first revision, with an MPR of 12930H, which meant I now had as many first revisions as I did originals. The 9th and final loose cartridge broke the tie with an MPR of 12675, meaning my 5th original. So out of 11 cartridges, 5 ended up being the original. 4 were the first revision and 2 were the second. Now I knew that 1 was an original ahead of time, but of the 10 unknown examples, I still got 4 originals out of 10 for a 40% success rate. So not quite 50-50, but close. This of course is a very small sample size. So it's possible I was just lucky, but it does go to show that the original version is out there, even if it isn't the easiest to find. Even finding it on eBay though can be tricky, risky, and tough to nail down in value. Loose copies of the game typically go for about $20. One seller sold a loose version 1.0 copy for $100, with a picture showing the Yuzo Koshiro copyright on the bottom of the title screen, stating in the description that was how you could tell it's an original, although that is not enough, and it could in fact be a first revision of the game. Complete copies tend to be in the $50 range. One seller sold a complete revision 00 copy for $200. This included pictures of the 12675 chip from the cartridge, showing the best proof a buyer could see. Another seller sold a complete copy for $125 plus shipping, stating in the title that it was the original 1.0 bosses infringement version, and that it had all the original bosses who were quickly changed in other versions due to copyright infringement in the description, but no evidence to support this in his pictures. They did receive positive feedback for the sale, so this may have truly been an original. A 4th seller took a best offer on a version 0 complete copy of the game. They were asking $110 plus shipping and included a picture of Rambo with hair to support their claim. A 5th seller is currently trying to sell a complete classics copy for $75, and they put version 1 in the title perhaps by error, as it would make it sound like it was a version 1.0 copy, when it would only be possible to be an original if an original copy was paired with the classic box. And that's it. I could only find 4 sold listings of potential originals which differed in price, in how they described the game, and didn't always provide concrete proof of originality, and there was only one current listing which could be described an original, but it's in the wrong box. So if you're looking on the Bay for an original, I would either make sure that the seller has both excellent feedback and a picture of the inside of the cartridge with the 12675 number on the chip, or at least a Rambo with hair picture. Or I might take a chance on a cheap copy as long as it doesn't have the patent information on the back. The Revenge of Shinobi is a true classic, and the original is out there, even in America. Do you have memories of playing the original? Do you have an original cartridge in your collection? Let me know in the comments below. If you decide to hunt for the original, let me know your results as well. Take care, and I will see you next time.